All right, man, peace. So, brother, this is going to be volume 1 in a new series that I'm starting called Listen to Your Gut. And this first edition is going to be featuring Mr. Rodney Reed, who is currently the story du jour of the liberal mainstream media. All the woke entertainers and celebrities are trying to act as if they're so concerned about the life of another so-called black man on death row. And of course, the conventional interpretation of this narrative is, well, you know, the prison industrial complex is just here to destroy black men. There are so many black men who are incarcerated for crimes they didn't commit. What are we going to do about this? But brothers, I'm going to cover this story from a different perspective. And that's from the vantage point of making sure that you always listen to your gut. If your gut is telling you something, it's probably true. It's probably actually occurring. What do I mean by that? When you're in a modern day, quote unquote, relationship with one of these modern day, quote unquote, women, always make sure that you're paying very close attention to everything that is going on in the quote unquote relationship as it is transpiring. It is very important because your relationship with your quote unquote woman can go from point A to point Q, not from point A to point B, from point A to point Q in a flash, and you won't even understand how it got there. You'll go from enjoying each other's company, being on the phone, talking for an hour, hour and a half every night, texting every day. She's responding immediately to your text, to all of a sudden, it's taking her 20, 25, 35 minutes to respond to a text message. She's starting to bicker and complain about little things. And you're starting to say to yourself, what's going on here? Why is she, quote unquote, changing? There's always a reason why the woman changes her conduct. And you have to pay very close attention to that. I'm saying that because if you don't listen to your gut, and if you don't pay very close attention to everything that's happening in your life, things are going to jump up and bite you. And next thing you know, you're going to have thoughts that invade your head that you never thought that you were going to have. There are a lot of cats locked up in prison for succumbing to certain whims that invaded their mind that they never thought would invade it. Dudes lose themselves, grab the woman up by her neck, and kill her because they cannot believe how quickly she changed on them. Well, I have news for you, brother. If you paid very close attention, or if you would have paid very close attention earlier, she would not have snuck up on you in the way that she did with the change in her conduct. I'm saying all this because right now Rodney Reed is on death row for a crime that he probably did not commit. Why is that? Because he decided that he was going to have a quote-unquote adulterous affair with that young female by the name of Stacey Stites, a 19-year-old Caucasian woman from Texas. At the time, Rodney Reed was, 51 years old right now? It's 2019. This occurred back in 1996. So he would have been about 28 years old at the time. He was having an affair with this female who was engaged to a Caucasian police officer from Texas. And if you're Rodney Reed, you have to think to yourself, what would have happened had we gotten caught in the midst of having intercourse? Would she have had my back? I promise you she would not have. Brothers, I promise you that Stacey Stites' ex-fiance by the name of Jimmy Fennell, the police officer that I was speaking about, he listened to his gut. Not only did he listen to his gut, he most likely had his woman under surveillance. Because there's little doubt in my mind that on the night she was murdered by him. Of course, everything that I'm saying is alleged. I'm just going by my own perspective and by my vantage point. But I believe that the prosecution knows that Jimmy Fennell most likely committed the crime. The point is this. When you're in a relationship with a female and you're starting to get clues that something is awry, something is amiss, take your emotions out of it. Utilize your rational mind and make sure that you get to the bottom of any situation that you need to get to the bottom of, especially if you're considering investing your time and your money in that quote unquote relationship. Don't get emotional and kill the woman because it's not going to be worth it. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
A death row inmate in Texas faces execution in just 2 weeks unless a celebrity-backed campaign can persuade the governor to intervene.
Now, brother, this is very good brand building for many of these celebrities. I'm not saying that none of them really care about Rodney Reed. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it's very good brand building. And some of them probably don't really care about him. It just looks good. It looks great to be able to say that you signed an online petition to help a so-called black man get off a death row. Well, if we transition the conversation into stopping modern-day liberal women from getting so many abortions, especially of black fetuses, watch how quickly they change.
Rodney Reed was found guilty in the 1996 rape and murder of 19-year-old Stacey Stites, but his attorney claims new witness statements and forensic evidence clear Reed. Omar Villafranca is at the state capitol in Austin, Texas. Omar, this case has received national and even international attention.
Good morning. You're right. And here at the Capitol, Republicans and Democrats don't see eye to eye on much. But a bipartisan group of lawmakers agree Rodney Reed's case needs to be considered again. And along with celebrities,
this is just a modern day version of the ancient Roman practice of allowing one prisoner to go free, just like we see in the Gospels with Barabbas and Christ. Same nonsense. And there's certainly going to be some type of Kabbalistic or numerological aspect to this. As you can see, Rodney Reed, there's 2 R's in his name. R is the 18th letter. So I'm sure that there is some type of numerological or symbolic resonance to why they've chosen this case to just push and propagate all across the country, and as they've stated, internationally. The point being is this, brothers, just to get back to what's truly relevant to the so-called black man in this captivity. Always listen to your gut. Listen to that inner voice in your head that we call a conscience, which is our higher self telling us what we should not be doing as opposed to what is okay. Because when you follow that, and of course follow the scriptures first, that's what's going to result in you living a life that is fulfilling without having to worry about bad energy coming at you down the line. Rodney Reed was doing something that he was not supposed to be doing, as was Stacey Stites, as was eventually Jimmy Fennell. And look at how they all ended up. As we're going to see later on in this segment, Jimmy Fennell, the quote-unquote fiance of Stacey Stites, ended up in prison for another crime similar in nature, involving a sexual assault, a kidnapping, etc. Rodney Reed has been incarcerated for the last 23 years, and Stacey Stites is dead. Always remember that the woman is going to try to find a way out of a situation if she can. If she can avoid accountability, if she can avoid culpability in any way, she's going to try to avoid it. So Rodney Reed should have thought about that before he decided that he was willingly going to participate in an affair with this woman. Look at where he is right now.
we're asking Texas Governor Greg Abbott to pause the execution and consider new evidence.
Brothers, look, not to digress. Pussy is great, it really is. But I can truly understand why when men want peace in their life, in whatever way, shape, or form, they just deny themselves a female accompaniment. There is so much peace that you have as a man being isolated away from that demonic energy. Nothing against them. The woman is beautiful when she's in her right mind and in her correct nature. But this Luciferian society that we live in, this Babylonian structure that we're forced to be encompassed by or enclosed by, has made the woman feel like she can just do anything and get away with it. No matter what she does, she gets to play the victim. And then you combine that with their natural sense of chaos. When you separate yourself from the woman, even if just for a moment, you have a great sense of peace. You really do. That's why I tell brothers you should always have your own place. It doesn't mean don't have a woman. It does not mean don't love your woman. Of course you have to love your woman, but you have to understand that they've been planted in defiled soil. The woman has been raised in a very reprobate culture. That's why it's so difficult to deal with them, especially if you're a cat who's operating on a higher wavelength. So you have to take your time with the woman. And once again, listen to your gut, because they will have a lot of backsliding. They're going to make very bad childlike decisions. They're going to continue to hang out with that homegirl who's a hoe. So watch all those things. If you see that your female does not respect you and how she dresses and how she conducts herself and how she speaks to you, those are all signs. I have to keep saying that because a lot of cats ignore those signs and then snap when what was right in front of your face and very obvious had you been paying close attention is suddenly revealed to you. You're shocked, you're flabbergasted, and you're embarrassed. And that embarrassment and that enraging makes you want to snap and get revenge on the woman. And next thing you know, you're doing 25 years in prison. There's no woman on the earth worth all that. None. You always love with your head and not your heart in the flesh.
Did you rape Stacey Stites?
No, I didn't.
Did you murder Stacey Stites?
No, I didn't.
Talk show host Dr. Phil conducted a
Did you lay good pipe on Stacey Stites? Yes, I did.
House interview with Rodney Reed that aired last month. He is just one of a number of celebrities, including Kim Kardashian West, Seth Green, and Rihanna, who...
Look at Rihanna. If Rihanna does not exude the energy of a succubus, I don't know what does. I mean, Rihanna looks like she wakes up, goes to the bathroom, and brushes her teeth with a dildo.
tweeted at Texas Governor Greg Abbott
to pardon Reed or commute his sentence.
I believe the people, the family, the supporters support the truth.
Prosecutors claim Stacey Stites was at home in 1996 with her fiancé Jimmy Fennell, a former police officer, before driving herself to work around 3 a.m. Investigators said Reed raped and strangled Stites between 3 and 5 a.m. and left her body in a remote area. Reed was arrested after his DNA was found on Stites. From the beginning, he maintained his innocence. He claimed he and Stites were having an affair and had consensual sex the day before her death.
How many times did you two?
That's so crazy. She was 19 years old and engaged to the police officer Jimmy Fennell, and she was still finding time in her week to get blazed by that mandingo. Jimmy Fennell probably knew. Every time he tried to have sex with her, it felt like he was deep sea diving. It's like as soon as that man went to penetrate, he's like, where am I? Am I? Is anybody here? Here?
You see each other?
Some weeks I would see her maybe once or twice a week.
After the trial,
Once or twice a week he was banging that out. Wow.
experts admitted to errors in the time of death, and the advocacy group The Innocence Project says the murder weapon was never tested for DNA.
Yes, it was. They tested the murder weapon. They just did not like the results that they found. So they threw that evidence out most likely. Of course, I'm just speaking according to my perspective. Everything that I'm saying in regards to this case is alleged. But that's how they get down.
Forensic pathologists have come forward and said that this is actually impossible that Rodney committed the crime. All of it exonerates Mr. Reed and points to Jimmy Fennell.
Fennell was initially a suspect in Stites' murder, but his DNA was not found on Stites' body.
Bullshit. They found the DNA. It's just that he told all his cop buddies, I found out that she was sleeping with a black guy. If we could pin it on him, let's try to do that. Either that or he understood how to kill her where it could not be traced back to him, but I doubt it. I believe that he got assistance from his friends in the police department and they helped to hide the crime and frame the black dude. Because you know how these police officers were. He didn't just kill her. He probably was staking her out for like the last 2 months to figure out where the hell she was going, why she always had excuses on certain nights of the week. Once again, brothers, those are signs. When you see a female suddenly decide that she's not going to answer her phone on certain days of the week, or she's not responding to text messages as fast, you have to log those things in your mind. Don't do what this dude did, which is set his woman up to get killed and try to frame somebody else. Just extricate yourself from the situation, move on to the next, focus on yourself.
His attorney, Bob Phillips, says his client is innocent.
Jimmy loved her. He was going to marry her in 3 weeks.
Yes, he probably did love her, and he probably was going to marry her in 3 weeks, until he found out that she was getting her back blown out by a nigga. He's like, I just arrested this son of a bitch 3 weeks ago. And that's who you're banging? Oh my goodness. Now I realize why my handcuffs are missing. Damn nigga was using them on you.
Later served 10 years in prison for unrelated kidnapping and improper sexual contact in 2007.
Wow. So this dude ends up getting arrested and incarcerated for kidnapping and unlawful sexual contact in 2007. So imagine how many women he was raping all the way from the 90s into the mid-2000s. Allegedly raping. Allegedly. But a lot of those good old boys from Oklahoma and Nebraska and Texas, highway patrol and stuff like that, they get off on that with women. They'll catch a woman drunk driving or having a suspended license, and they'll make those type of deals with them.
Pled guilty, did his time. He's now out of prison.
Now, an inmate named Arthur Snow, who was incarcerated with Fennell and was a former member of the Aryan Brotherhood, is coming to Reed's defense.
Damn. How much of a piece of shit you gotta be that a member of the Aryan Brotherhood sells you out for a black guy?
Claims Fennell confessed to killing Stites because she was, quote, sleeping with a black man behind his back.
No shit.
Fennell's attorney says Snow's story is fiction.
What does he have to gain by making that stuff up? Knock it off.
Brother Roderick told CBS This Morning this new evidence is enough to save his brother's life. There's been testimony from people who are in prison. Do you think that needs to be brought in this case now?
That testimony from Mr. Snow needs to be brought in. All avenues need to be traveled in order to get to the truth, to get justice for Stacey Stites and my brother Rodney Reed.
Well, brother, with all due respect, justice is directly linked and correlated with judgment. And Stacey Stites already received her judgment for the chicanery and the wickedness that she was trying to execute on two different men. Brothers, always keep this in mind. When you get caught up in one of those adulterous rapports with a woman, something is going to happen. I promise you that something is going to happen. At the very least, that first dude that you might not know about, or maybe you do know about, is going to call you up and make some type of threat, if not outright try to kill you. Many times and in many situations, one guy ends up dead, the other dude ends up in prison, and the woman walks off with a third guy that nobody knew about. In this case, it happened to be that the guy decided that he was going to kill the woman. He probably had planned to kill Rodney Reed later on if he was unable to frame him.
We reached out to Governor Abbott's office but have not heard back. As for Roderick, he plans to travel to Washington, D.C. next week because the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to hear his brother's appeal. But time is running out because the execution date is still November 20th. Tony?
Oh, wow, Omar, that's coming up quickly.
Talk about the clock ticking. At the very least, why can't there be a pause so you could at least consider all this new evidence?
There's some pretty compelling evidence.
More to come on this story.
Compelling evidence? Come on now. It's very obvious that Rodney Reed did not kill that woman and that her quote-unquote fiance is the person who was the murderer, and he was enraged. Once again, brothers, listen to your gut. Follow your rational mind. Pay attention to whatever it is that is going on around you, especially in these so-called relationships. These women move according to their sense of boredom and excitement. That is it. They look at this modern day society as an amusement park. Every person that they encounter is like a new ride. They get on the ride until they get bored, and then they look for another ride to get on. That's how they view life. They may not even be willing to acknowledge that, but it's my job to tell you that so that you understand the mindset of the woman. And that's why you have to focus on the scriptures, because that's what's going to be your stability. That's what's going to be your wisdom, especially in this time period, because the woman is totally bugged out of her mind. But these type of stories, once again, these stories are used to quote unquote clout chase by the mainstream liberal media and by a lot of these celebrities. They don't really give a shit about Rodney Reed. They don't give a fuck about the so-called black man in general. They just utilize these gestures to build up their own profile and to amplify, their presence in the entertainment world, act like they care, so on and so forth. If we really care, we have to address the root issues. The root issues are how we think, how we act, how we respond to things. None of us are ever going to be perfect. Sometimes you're going to spaz out. Just try to pull it together. It's going to be what it's going to be. So hopefully Rodney Reed will be able to avert an oncoming disaster, or whoever his counsel is will help him avert an oncoming disaster, and he will learn from this. And if not, we all have to learn from it. So peace.